Look, this is an incredibly important time. We have to recognize that we didn't get to where we are today by accident. We got here by law. We got here by policy. We got here by the way people feel in their hearts. Systemic racism shows up in very quiet places, and that's because of the history that we all inherit. Getting from here to the future that we need is going to require thoughtful and intentional, serious investment and effort on the part of the government. It's not just about law enforcement, and I wanted to address this because I'm going to take a back seat to no one when it comes to making sure that our communities are safe, and the proposals that I've put out invest in stronger law enforcement. And what happened on the Senate floor with that PROTECT Act, that was a railroad job. That was written in a closed room. It didn't go through a hearing process. There was not discussions about how it would be amended. That's not how you bring people together around one of the most important issues of our time. But systemic racism, David, it shows up in healthcare in the midst of this crisis when North Carolina is 22% African American, but almost 40% of the COVID diagnoses because of inequities in access to healthcare, the types of jobs, the essential workers in this economy. It shows up in housing discrimination, and the legacy that's left us in the wealth gaps between white and black North Carolinians. It shows up in our investments in education. It shows up across our economy, across our society. We have to be thoughtful about it. We have to listen to each other. We call out those who do wrong, who are committing acts of violence in the streets, but we need to hear the voices of people who are angry and hurt and are calling out for reform. And those are the voices that I've gone out to hear. My wife and I, we went out and we marched in the streets of Raleigh. You know who we marched with? The sheriff of Wake County, because we recognize that the only way to move forward is to bring people together, to hear the voices, and then to bring people together. It's why I laid out a very thoughtful plan, frankly, drawing from my own experience as a prosecutor, as an Army prosecutor and a federal prosecutor, and as vice chair of the Governor Roy Cooper's Crime Commission.
What do you think defund the police actually means? And is there a better word that should be used if we're talking about a reallocation of funds?
David, let me make it absolutely clear. In this campaign, and as the senator for North Carolina, I've called for a federal Department of Justice grant funding program to boost resources for law enforcement. Why is that? I spent time in a barber shop over in Cary, listening to community activists as well as law enforcement leaders from across our state. And here's what they say. We want to reform. We want to adopt best practices. We want to raise accreditation, banning things like chokeholds, requiring de-escalation training. But in order to do it, we've got to have the resources to do it. Now, the other aspect of this, which is so critical if we listen to our law enforcement leaders, as I have, is that they recognize that we cannot arrest our way out of the opioid crisis. We have countless thousands of North Carolinians tonight for whom law enforcement isn't the solution, healthcare is. If we were to expand Medicaid, we would be able to cover 150,000 people that are having encounters with law enforcement today. We would be able to give them the quality and affordable care that they need in order to beat their addiction.